possible. Those of you who signed the petition, those who braved an October snowstorm and came to town meeting to vote 297 to 7 to fund this project, and those of you who came out in January to pass the debt override. Thanks to you, we are here today. I would also like to acknowledge the members of the Board of Directors of the Council on Aging who initiated the ballot question. If there are any of you here at this session, would you stand up, please? Board of Directors of the Council. Okay.
Board of Directors of the Council.
Okay. Rosalie. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you're on the council.
You're on the board. And I'd like you to meet the members of the Senior Center Building Committee who have worked long hours visiting many senior centers, worked with Suzanne Travisano, the Senior Service Director, fine-tuning the program and space needs of a building, and we were able to transmit those experiences to the architects who have come up with this plan. Will the building committee members please stand up? The Friends of the Hadley Council on Aging also play a big part by funding programs and activities at the center. There are many ways you can support the Friends. Please take one of their business cards from the back or a membership envelope. There are also tickets for Chicken to Go for June 11th, as well as a few raffle tickets for the really big raffle. Now I'd like to introduce you to the paid professionals in this process. Suzanne Travisano, the Senior Service Director. Bill Colombo, Hadley's Owner's Project Manager. Dawn and Tim Eagles.
Jane, could you please speak up or use the microphone? We're having a little
Microphone
trouble.
doesn't work.
Well, just
I need my water.
like in the opera, you know.
I have no liquid in my mouth, so I will speak up.
Thank you. Not your fault.
Okay, we did Bill, and now Dawn and Tim Eagles, the owners of EDM Architects. Their office is in Unionville, Connecticut. And now I turn the program over to them.
Thank you, everybody. What we wanted to do today is show you a little bit about what we've been up to with the committee. It's a long process to get from the beginning to the end of a design and build project like the Senior Center. It's a very exciting project, very exciting process. I'm just going to get this big portfolio off the table for these ladies. It's in the middle of the way. But we're kind of at the beginning of the process in that we're in what we call a schematic design stage. And the effort in the schematic design stage is really to identify up front through a programming, series of programming sessions. In an ideal world, what is everything we should have in the Senior Center for what our needs are? How do we meet our needs? We spent a lot of time with a consultant that we have, Doug and Alan Gallo from Lifespan Design, who are experts in Senior Center design that have been with us through the process, coming out to see what you currently have, what the current programs are, what the future proposed programs are, and then kind of set a path forward to figure out what what an idealized Senior Center would look like for the town of Hadley. We've gotten through that point. We've gotten to a point where we've put together an idealized plan, which we're calling a schematic design plan, which I want to show you today, both a site plan and a building plan and some ideas of what the exterior might look like. We've put that together with just today some cost estimating. And I want to bring you through the process a little bit. So the initial piece that we have is the site. If you look at the front, and of course, just got to check to see if I have a pointer in there. So we have the site plan, and if you folks are familiar, this is Middle Street here on the left, with the box in the center is the existing senior center. I'll do my best to yell to the back. I'm going to have to yell to get it all the way there. As long as you guys don't mind me yelling, I can yell. But we have the current entrance off Middle Street. Russell Street's down here on the bottom. And then the existing site that we're looking at is the current senior center. And we're going to build at the back of that lot to the east. So the colored portion of the plan, which I'm going to show you here, is the thought is to put the senior center to the far east edge of the lot, and then parking out in front. So everything, when you get out of your car, it'll be directed towards the front door of the building, which will be on the east end of the site. Very simple parking, 2 double aisle sets of 90-degree parking. And then there's a right turn in only off Russell Street and a right turn out only. The state will not allow us, based on where we're at on Russell Street, to put left turn in and left turn out of there. But the thought is to have a... Perfect. I'll even go mobile. So the idea is to have the left access to and from Russell Street, but that will be only right turn out as you leave or right turn in as you approach. The main entrance will still be where it currently is off Middle Street, feed in through the parking and into a new parking lot, which will be out in front. The idea really is, as Doug and Ellen put it, is called universal design. No curbs for people to have to mount. The sidewalks will be flush with the parking areas, so very easy access coming and going.
Mr. Nagella to the cafeteria, please. Stan Nagella to the cafeteria.
So the idea is to approach the building from the west side, entering on the east end. You'll see around the front corner, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better in some of the three-dimensional drawings we brought. But the idea is to have an outdoor patio on the southwest corner of the building, and there's a little access drive to the back side of the kitchen and the dumpster off on the east side. To jump into the building, focus. So if you come in, this is oriented just like the site plan. So east is to the right, south to the bottom of the page. Where it says canopy, we'll come in a covered canopy, which will go right out to the edge of the drive for the drop-off. Come into a vestibule. There's a reception station right there with a bench next to it. A lounge and library space for social space within the right at the front door. And then the largest room in the space, dining and assembly, off to the right-hand side as you come in. The office suite will be to the left as you come in around the reception function, and then straight down what's a fairly short corridor will be 2 classrooms. One's labeled arts and crafts, and classroom on the left-hand side, game lounge, which is an open space for playing cards and so forth that goes out to a little patio, equipped fitness room, treadmills, stair steppers, those types of things. The exercise studio in the southeast corner, and then what we call the core, which is kind of all the support spaces for the building in the middle on the south side. So that is comprised of the men's and women's room, a nurse's suite, the mechanical rooms and storage, as well as a big table and chair storage for the dining and assembly space, and then the kitchen in the kind of right in the center on the southeast corner of the dining assembly area. The kitchen also has an exterior access for deliveries and those types of things, taking the garbage out and so forth. Quick look at what it might look like. Initial thoughts on what it might look like as you approach from the parking lot. Once again, the idea is to have a canopy that comes right out to the street so that people are protected as they're dropped off. And then we have the smaller volume on the left-hand side is the office wing, and the part on the right would be the dining and assembly. Very traditional materials. The idea is we want the building to fit right in with the surrounding context here in Hadley. This is just kind of rotating around the side of the building, so the pieces squirting out on the left-hand side in the center would be the library lounge space. And then the building continues along.
Is it two-story?
It's a one-story building.
So we remove all that space overhead, single ceilings?
There's going to be some taller ceilings in the dining and the lounge space. Other parts of it will be used up in the trusses, will be mechanical space for air handlers, ductwork, that kind of stuff. Instead of taking floor space, on the actual floor plate, we'll be able to utilize the space for that above. This is just swinging around. The little indentation on the right is the access from the game room, possibly with a clear story above it to let some more daylight in, and then working your way around the exercise rooms on the east end of the building.
What is north and what is south?
So in this particular view, north is to the left, south is to the right. And the entry canopy faces west, towards the parking lot. So the cathedral space would be basically the volume that runs through perpendicular to the long axis this way. This is just coming around the other corner. So a little bit more glass in the exercise studio on the corner, and then coming around the kitchen and the entry or the opening to the dining and assembly space. Looking a little bit back at this view, you can see once again the southwest corner. This is what we're envisioning as possibly a patio out front for exterior space that opens off the dining and assembly space. Sidewalk along the front would drop off, and then the parking lot to this side. Pardon me? The cupola is number one, architecture to make it look more barn-like, and number two, we're probably going to use them for ventilation as well, as part of the mechanical systems that bring fresh air into the building.
Do you have a view of the road coming or the driveway coming from Middle Street?
I do not. I do not have that with
There is
me.
going to be
The driveway off Russell Street?
Middle Street.
The driveway, we'll go back to the, let me just jump back to the site plan. So Middle Street's running up north and south right here on the left-hand side of the page. Right now, it would be the existing drives that are on either side of the existing old school building. This is the current senior center. And that would come back and plug into the new parking lot that's in front of the proposed senior center.
Because that will be a safer way to get in and out.
Yes, and that was pointed out to us very early on by the committee, the access down to Route 9, Russell Street, is really only if you're coming westbound on Russell Street. You can take a right-hand turn in there, or if you wanted to leave that way, you can come out that way and go westbound only. There's no way to go eastbound, either in or out.
More service and delivery entrance than anything else. It's not really meant for the general public. It's more meant for service and deliveries and emergency vehicles.
So as I said at the beginning, this is, in an idealized world, this is where we end up in terms of what we can fit in terms of parking. We've got close to 100 parking spots that would fit if we were to build it out to this point. And we're about 12,000 square feet in this plan with everything that I've shown you. I also mentioned today that we started doing some cost estimating, and at this point, for the budget that we have, we can't afford to build this entire building. And so that's one of our challenges going forward, is to figure out how are we going to right-size the building for now, with the potential for an addition to get the building, build this out for the idealized plan with everything in it. Because we have a set budget that we need to stick to and go forward.
Explain what that means.
Explain
We're going to build half the building and half the building later?
Well, what we would definitely do at this point, and we haven't really explained, we haven't spent any time with the committee yet to understand exactly what it means. But what it means is, in an idealized world, we want to build all this, but we don't have the budget to build all this.
And we just found this out at 1 o'clock today after the reconciliation. So we're also, trying to say, what does that mean? And if you want me to speak to that right now, I'll give it my best shot. So we just found this out, as I said, at 1 o'clock. We sat down at 9 o'clock this morning, 8 o'clock this morning, with two estimators, the OPM, the architects. This process happens 3 times during the design phase, okay? The first phase of coming up with plans is that you make your programmatic plans, as Tim said to you, where this is what we'd like to have. And then how many people do you want to be able to fit in that exercise class? 20 people. Well, according to architectural standards, you need 7 by 7 feet for each person to be in that class. So this room should be this big. So that's what came up out of this, okay? Then we sit down with cost estimators like we did this morning, and we go over every foot of plumbing, what the plumbing's made out of, what kind of tiles we're using for the ceiling, what kind of HVAC are we using, where are the electrical lines coming in, how many feet of that. So you're really starting to look at square foot costs for every single thing that you've kind of looked at for your design, okay? And what we learned is that we need to either downsize our building, which we can certainly do, and still meet our core goals for serving you. And we can do that with the design in mind that should you want to expand it later on, we can do that. This is news to us and to the committee too. So the committee needs to sit down and say, okay, so now we're back at looking at what are our priorities, okay? Exercise is huge in Hadley, we get that. So that's most, and also statistics are showing me that I have more younger seniors in Hadley than elders. But we also know we've got the elders covered with being able to come to a beautiful lunch and all of the events, the nurse's office, and any services they might need through the offices. So how are we going to serve the newly retired? Their focus is on health maintenance. So I'm seeing a priority towards making sure that they have education and fitness. So I'm guessing from my experience here in Hadley that those are going to be the things we work on. We could do things like taking out the conference room, putting the nurses' suite up there, pushing everything over and maybe having a smaller classroom where it doubles as your arts and crafts and conference room, and then putting the exercise studio up there. Meanwhile, knowing the last quarter or so of the building is something we're gonna have to do in phase 2 or whenever. There's a way to get our needs met. We need to go back to what we have, prioritize, and fit it in our budget. Is that clearer to everyone? Yes.
What's the gap between the original budget and what is the actual, the new budget?
You really don't want to know.
Is that big?
Pardon me?
It's that big.
It's big enough where we can't do this. So we need to take a hard look and keep to our
How big
word.
is the gap? Tell us.
The gap is over $1 million.
So technically speaking, you know,
I'm going to hand it over to the OPM.
Suzanne, tell people what the OPM is.
Owner Project Manager.
I know, but
Thanks.
Go
So technically speaking, we don't have the revised schematic design estimates. This morning we had a reconciliation meeting. In that meeting, you go through each line item, each scope of work. You understand what the numbers are going to reconcile to. Then over the next 24, 48 hours, the estimators go back to their office and reconcile their numbers and provide us with their revised estimates. From what we, at the reconciliation meeting though, you kind of get a rough understanding what the end result is. What we're finding out, one estimator is at 1.4 million over our construction budget. The other one's around 1.8 million over our construction budget. So a large amount like that, you're not going to achieve getting that down to budget by, value engineering an HVAC system. That more comes from reducing the size of the building. So that's going to be the first exercise we do with the committee, understanding space priority and understanding how we can achieve that.
Oh, yeah, the site was a huge site.
A big part, so the way you break down the estimate, you have a building construction cost, and then you have a site cost, because every site is different. In the site budget, we were over by $600,000 in terms of what our site budget is versus what the estimates came in at. So another option to get this project to budget is potentially maybe the first initial design, we cut down half of the parking spaces that we have, and we don't have as many parking spaces. That's a thought.
Phil, could, now that this is being discussed publicly, the problems with the site that led to the great increase in estimated costs have to do with drainage? Is that correct?
Well, that's kind of unclear. We had a geotech analysis done. No real major issues or concerns with the existing soil. But to answer your question, yes. So the larger hard surface you have, the larger subsurface drainage you need to provide. And so yes, to answer your question, yes, that's gonna, if we decrease the size of asphalt, we're decreasing the size of the drainage system, so that's gonna be a cost savings, correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Are you having a cellar?
No basement.
Why?
That,
It was free.
well, it's not free. It's actually adds like $100 a foot. And a better effective way to locate mechanical equipment is actually in the attic. So that was the thought process behind that. Because initially the thought was have a basement, put the HVAC equipment down there, but it's not as cost effective as locating it in the attic.
Do you have a second story?
No,
Why all these,
the gables to have attic space to have the HVAC equipment. Right. Well, well, we ran the numbers, and the team did not eliminate. It's better use of the attic space to have the HVAC equipment, and that way you're not taking over the floor plan. And that was the thought process behind that.
anybody have any questions on the plan or the pieces or parts of the plan? I can put that. No, we haven't.
Are there any exits in the east?
Exits to the east. We currently do not have any exits facing directly east.
Is that safe?
Oh yeah, we have plenty of exits. We have exits directly out of the exercise and dance studio. We have exits out of the game lounge. So there's plenty. We have many more exits than we need per building code currently. Yep.
At the southwest corner, there was like an awkwardly colored, seemed like a patio area you were proposing. Is that going to be paved? And if so, is that going to be asphalt?
It's currently in the budget. It's concrete, broom finished concrete. So the recommendation from the senior center consultant is to not do pavers because they move and shift over time and become unstable and difficult to walk on, and to do a asphalt or a concrete surface. So that's what we currently have in the budget.
Thank you.
Currently, to the east of the new proposed building is a parking lot, town parking lot. Is that going to be absorbed by the new senior center?
Yes.
There's 44 setbacks.
So it's hard to see, but the Legion building is actually, there's an edge of it right here. This is the Legion lot that's right in here, and then there's some form of chunk of asphalt that's currently right here. So yes, that would go away as part of what we're doing here.
And also the right-of-way for the east exit that goes through the Legion parking lot, would that be maintained by the town or repaved, or?
The idea right now in the budget, that would be repaved.
And that's a town right of way.
The town has a right of way.
There's an easement there, yes.
Right.
But I'm concerned about the traffic going in and out, especially if the Legion has a function there, which we do have quite a few functions over parties, weddings, funerals.
Right.
That would inhibit people, or lessen the parking lot for the Legion, for less cars, or the cars are parked right in the roadway to the back of the new senior center.
Right, I think the thought process has been, and you guys can correct me on the committee if I'm wrong, but the thought process has been that the Legion could use as overflow parking, the senior center parking during an event, to help mitigate that.
Okay.
That was our thinking. We haven't, it's been in our mind that we wanted to try and be good neighbors, and so far as making that happen, which is why we chose this particular layout. We figured it might make everybody a little bit, solve a few problems. Yes, I understand.
Do we need a parking lot that size?
The size of the parking lot right now, we sized it only by what fits. We still need to sit down and develop with the committee exactly how many spots, for your current activities, and then how are the activities going to expand. But right now we have about 100 spots shown. We haven't fully determined exactly what you need yet. So the answer to your question may be, it might be bigger than what you need.
This one.
You can't enter and exit on the side of the building from Rose Street to Mill Street?
The entry and exit would be onto, the main entry and exit would be on the Middle Street. This,
As it is now.
as it currently is.
You cut it down to 75 spaces.
We certainly could cut it down to 75. We have to see I can't remember exactly what planning and zoning requires, but depending on the ultimate size of the building, we need the right size of the parking lot for function as well as, for code purposes, which we'll do as part of this, and cost. So it may be 75, it may be 60, 70, right.
You don't really count that much
Sure.
The cafeteria general purpose room in your diagram, how does it compare in size to this room? I mean, it's hard to get a sense of how big things are.
Sure.
That's it.
I can't remember off the top of my head the square footage of the, pardon me?
Is it the same size as this room or half the size of this room?
It's not as big as this room. I'm trying to get the,
I think it's about 1,800.
1,800 square feet.
Can you show about what it looks like?
So the room, my best guess at this point is if you guys see the corner over there where the light pole's standing, and you drew a line across the room, the size we're all in on this side of that is about the size of that, about that space. It's a nice sized room. And the thought initially is that there might be Westfield, the folks saw it over in Westfield, Senior Center, they've got a small platform in the corner that can be used for performances as well as it kind of creates a cozy nook for smaller tables and stuff. So that's what we've kind of indicated on the corner here. Yeah, it's a raised, not this
Two
tall.
steps.
We've only got it about this tall. But, so there's a ramp on one side and some steps and removable railings along the other edge. Pardon me?
That's part of it.
Yes, it's all open part of the dining.
Platform with dual access, isn't that?
Yes.
The hybrid of, I mean, the idea of universal access, isn't it to be no steps?
There's a
Or a
ramp.
raised platform for
There's a
the
ramp.
stage performances?
There's a ramp.
There's a
There's a
ramp.
ramp on one side and 2 steps on the other going up.
There's both.
No, I understand. I'm just
Oh.
saying, isn't that the brainchild of having two things, the universal access?
Yeah.
I mean, can't you just accomplish it all with?
Could we do it with only
Just
the ramp and no stair on this side?
Does it need a lift?
No.
Right. So then it could all just be ramp?
We might be able to do it with just the ramp based on the size.
Just one thing.
Yep.
Question. I voted for this and supported and so forth. And it was interesting, see if I understand this, that the originally before the town meeting was going to be 2,300,000, is that correct? Then we came in.
3.5.
Then it came in at 5.3, and a figure of 7 million was thrown out there. And as a former businessman and a taxpayer, you know, we came in to town meeting and a 40% increase with no real explanation of what we're getting for that. And today, I guess we asked for a Cadillac building, and now today we're hearing that for 5.3 we can't get this. That's a fair statement. And that's what I'm hearing. We got to regroup, and you heard that, you found that out this morning.
I think that's a fair
So we got a Cadillac facility, but it's going to cost more, and we got to regroup. We can't do it for 5.3.
We're just gonna cut the trunk off.
Good?
We're just gonna cut the trunk off. The rest of it will stay high quality.
Right, the idea is to keep the Cadillac built to a smaller Cadillac.
I would like to say also, and this was a learning experience for me during the year since the committee got going, and they go, which is that.
No, Ed, nobody can hear you.
Thank you. I just want to say this has been a learning experience for me during the year since the committee got going, that building a municipal building in Massachusetts is a whole other kettle of fish from building a house or even in many cases a business, that probably because of the scandals that many of us remember back in the 70s and 80s, the bricks falling out of the UMass library, etc. The building code for municipal buildings is got all these extra layers built into it. And that's part of what we've been struggling with. I mean, you're all familiar with prevailing wage. That's one of the parts of that. But there are a number of other restrictions we're fighting with because it's a municipal building. We didn't realize we were going to get the shock we got today from the estimators. But as people have been saying, we're going to do the best to figure out how to move forward.
I think Suzanne put it best, is that the building that we're gonna ultimately design and build is gonna meet the needs that you guys need day one when you open. She can fulfill her mission in the building that we're gonna do. It's also gonna, the idea is to have a core that's built to enlarge the building if you want and need to in the future. So it's not that, in an ideal world, yeah, we'd love to have all these rooms, but the reality of it is the money's not there to do it. But what we can build will meet the needs when you open the doors on day one for the programs that they envision having in the center.
Why don't we have a building that's square or rectangular instead of having all these jets sticking out? That's extra expensive. And you don't gain anything. Is that beauty?
Well, right now, the different juts and things tie into the architecture. Whether we ultimately decide to simplify it, we're working with the, working with the building committee now on, what is the final shape and form. But yes, what the plan's doing relates directly to the volumes and what it looks like from the exterior at this point.
It's a process.
Still don't, I like that, a higher roof. Means nothing. And an expense.
Any other thoughts, comments?
It's like this room, it puts light in on the overhead. And as we age, I don't know, maybe your eyes are better than mine, but I like more light in the room.
Never go with a flat roof.
Yeah,
That's a directive we've definitely been given by the committee, is they did not want to see any flat roofs on the building, so everything has a pitch. And when the building's 75 feet across, you put a pitch on it, the roof gets pretty tall. So,
What is the exterior material of the building?
the exterior material on the building right now are clapboards, a solid clapboard material. We've talked about vinyl siding as a possibility as well. That's something that we haven't finalized any of the materials, but it's not a cedar siding or it's a long-term material.
Will it be less expensive to add on to this building in the future?
no,
of course not. It's going to be more expensive.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we bite the bullet and do it now?
do you have a checkbook with you?
We on the committee.
We don't tax business in this town. We tax business the same as residents. Residents in this town are paying to supply services to all of those businesses. We need to change an attitude.
Anything else? Questions, comments? We have copies of the drawing over here.
I just want to make a small comment. We were talking about how high the ceilings were and stuff. And I've been going to see the present senior center for a number of years now, and I'd really like to get out of the basement. I'd like to see clear stories. But right now, the building is, the room I'm exercising in, when you throw up a ball, you have to be careful because the ceiling is like this high.
Right.
So I like the clear stories.
Well, economists, policy.
I used to live in Northampton. I used to go to I live in Northampton, I used to go to Northampton Senior Center. That's a big, beautiful center. I tell you, they've got a lot of rooms that are empty. And it's depressing. You go in there and there's all these empty rooms. Now, maybe sometime in the day or at the night, they may have something going on in there, but you don't need a lot of rooms. You need rooms that function, that work for the function that you have them for, and I'd rather be a little closer than have rooms that we don't need. We find out we've got this great big dining center with a platform and all this, and we don't need it. I'd rather have less space and make do with it, because we can do it. If we've been doing it in this senior center, we can do it anywhere.
Any other questions?
Is DP architect, where are they from?
EDM Architects, we have two offices, one is in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and one in Unionville, Connecticut. Both a little over an hour.
And he's like, in his office, question this.
Question mark.
Well,
We are.
you know, the thing happening nowadays is, I have a buy local.
Yep. We were selected by the building committee, I don't know if you know anything about the process.
The building committee interviewed
five different architectural firms and scored them on different things, and then all of those scores were tallied, and they won by the highest score. So we did entertain other architects as well and other firms as well, and the whole committee felt that they wanted to go with EDM.
Did the selectman's office question this?
The selectman's office also signed off on the contract with EDM, so they know about this as well. There are a lot.
The board is appointed by the select board.
Yeah, there are a lot of firms all over that bid on jobs everywhere. It doesn't just stay. That's the way it is now. So yes, they knew about it.
Very good leadership in town.
We are interested in your input, so if you have anything to say, please say it. So,
We'll make everybody a starter for today.
So this is a lovely Cadillac. If you even know, from the last 3 hours since you found out about the budget concerns, where do we go from here in making the Cadillac into the Toyota we can make do with?
Where do we go?
Yeah, if you even know, where do we go from here? What are the possibilities? I'm sure there are many.
The big thing we spoke about was to maintain quality and get it to budget. So the idea is the most efficient way to do that is decrease building size and figure out what you can do with the site design to get that back to the site budget. So to be honest with you, we really don't know the best way to decrease the building size. That's something we got to go through with the committee to understand space priority, what spaces can be lived without for now, and that stuff. And same goes for the site. We got to talk about, the patio. At the beginning, is that just grass, and maybe you create a patio, in the future, stuff like that. So, and the asphalt, the parking lot, does that get smaller? So that's all stuff we still have to talk about. We don't really have anything definitive right now, but this afternoon, those are the things we threw out at the meeting.
But I just think it's impressive that you've got that many ideas rolling around in your heads from 3 hours ago.
Yeah, thank you.
Go for it.
And the committee will be meeting next Wednesday, and we meet regularly, so we're not going to take off for the summer or some such nonsense. We're going to work on it as best we can.
I know, I live with
I know.
I think the bottom line goal that Suzanne talked about earlier is definitely need to meet program on day one. So that's what we're really going to be working with the committee on, is what are the spaces that need to be as part of that to do that, fulfill that mission, and get us in, into a budget. that we can afford.
We can do it.
I think so. It's gonna be tough, but we can do it.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about was having a walkway that went around the building, so people could walk around.
Right, so the comment was, one of the things that was talked about was the walkway around the building. It's not currently illustrated, but that definitely is one of the thoughts that need to be put into the minutes. We've heard that, it's just not illustrated on the drawing.
Right now, we're trying to concentrate on the building itself and the quality of the building and having it be able to meet all of your needs. That's what we're concentrating on right now. Things like a sidewalk around the building for walking, because it was meant as an exercise thing with benches around it. Those are like the extras above and beyond. Right now, we have a budget to work with for the building itself that we're still needing to hone. So those ideas will come in after we're done with the next piece.
Just to understand, is it fair to say we've got a budget of $5.3 million?
Correct.
And this plan, in our prism, is, they told you today or whatever, it's going to be, I heard the number, $6.3 million. Like, is that a fair statement?
No.
Everything you would presented would cost $6.3 million versus the $5.3 million that we have. Is that,
No.
is that what I'm hearing?
The $5.3 million figure is total project, so, a third of that is soft costs, so an OPM fee, architect fee, and then the other 2/3 is construction costs. So our construction budget is roughly $3.8 million. So that includes building costs and site work costs. So what we found out today is we have one estimator saying it's $5.2 million to build this, another saying it's $5.6 million to build it.
That's the first part of the process. You go hone it back down again. This wasn't meant to be one and done. You don't come up with one design and say, oh yeah, unless you're, rich and have all the money in the world. But, we want to build a quality building that's going to meet all the needs. So, we're going to take another look at it. We're going to double up some of the purposes of the rooms if we have to.
Make the parking lot smaller.
And make, and things like making the parking lot smaller without shortchanging ourselves. It has to be able to be functioned to meet the needs while staying in the budget. We can design something like that, increasing our program all the while, but have a plan for expansion in phase 2 that happens down the road, if that's the way the committee deems is the best plan moving forward. We're not done with designing. We're trying to get closer to our budget and still keep all those needs met.
Yeah, just quickly, according to code, there's a certain number of spaces that have to be allocated because of the size of the building. So when we're talking about the building, we're talking about the whole physical space. You got to kind of plan the spacing for the parking, correct?
Yeah.
So really kind of the sidewalk around the building is involved in the whole budget thing already?
Yes.
Cool. That's great.
Does anybody have any questions about the process moving forward? The committee has to come together again and take all of this news and kind of say, okay, given that and knowing what our priorities are, how are we going to make the footprint smaller? No questions? Comments?
I'd just like to say that it's a rainy, gloomy day, and having been in on this process for about a year, which was when it started, it's easy to get discouraged, it's easy to get encouraged, but the committee, in my judgment, is a very tenacious group. They're going to stick with this, and Suzanne and so on, and we're going to work this out. It ain't going to be easy. There may be some private fundraising that goes along, But I'm not all that pessimistic. I think we can work this out, personally.
We have if anybody wants to look closer at the plans and so forth, they're on the tables over here to the left.
Thank you all for
Thank you all.
coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Suzanne, remind people that there's a 6 o'clock in case they have friends around.
Yep, we'll be doing this again at 6 tonight if you know other people that need to hear it.